Epicentre, May 10th, 11th, and 12th, 2019, Rockingham, North Carolina. Tickets are going fast, and we're only weeks away. Do not miss one of the biggest rock festivals in the world. Featuring performances by The Foo Fighters, Korn, Rob Zombie, Tool, Bring Me the Horizon, Evanescence, 311, Killswitch Engage, and so many more. Do not miss a once-in-a-lifetime lineup. Tickets are going fast. Get your tickets now by clicking the link in the description of this video. We're continuing to follow a developing story between Slipknot and their now former percussionist Chris Fehn, who has filed a suit against the band claiming that they wouldn't give him access to their finances and that they are forming LLCs around the country, and he's not sure what type of revenue they are gaining from it and if that money is being dispersed equally to the members of the band. Now, it is Chris's position that he is involved in an equal partnership with the other members of the band and that he has somewhat of a controlling interest of the group, with Corey Taylor and Clown just being placed in good faith leaderships for the group. Of course, we've had Trip Law on the show, the attorney representing Chris Fehn, who has told us that Chris Fehn feels as if the band is refusing to let him see those financial records, and they want that to be made available to them so they can determine whether or not he is due any compensation. If you'd like to see that discussion with Chris Fehn's attorney, you can click the card up on your screen now. Now, moving on, we have a big update in the case in which there has been a response from the Slipknot camp, mainly their business manager. The attorneys for Robert Shore filed an affidavit on his behalf, and he has a full response to the claims being made by Chris Fehn. Now, of course, we're not attorneys here. Take this with a grain of salt. This is just an opinion, and we are not legal experts here, but we're going to try to make the most of it as we can. Some of it is in plain language. There's a lot of legalese there, but we are going to try to make the most. There is some plain claims made in this document that you can clearly make sense of, and we're going to get right into it. Here you have on your screen the affidavit, which was filed in New York State Court today, and it says, Robert Shore, being duly sworn, deposes and says Rob Shore and Associates is a duly created and active New York State corporation that renders music business management services, and then blah, 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 blah. He says, I founded RSA. I'm an RSA employee. I am also the president of RSA. It's an independent, distinct corporate entity that performs all acts of such independent, distinct corporate entities, including maintaining bank accounts, maintaining employees, paying and withholding taxes, filing tax returns, paying rent, paying insurance premiums, etc. They do a lot for bands, and bands have complicated legal situations. It says he routinely interacts with all RSA clientele as well as others who may be associated with the clientele. They are clients of RSA, and the interaction is on behalf of RSA, the process being applied to the entities conducting the business of the musical band, professionally known as Slipknot. To the extent I've ever undertaken to an act on behalf of Christopher Fehn, it was or would have been in no capacity other than an RSA employee. So what he's saying here is common with people who run businesses, that when people make legal threats against you, they tend to do so in a personal manner. But the reality is they have to file those claims against your business. They can try to sue you personally, but that is something that is very difficult to do. When you have an LLC or a corporation, there are protections in place that prevent people from being able in the first place to sue you. So they're obviously here asking for at least Rob Shore to begin with to be removed from the equation, and they have to go after his company, which is different than his personal finances. And then on top of that, they're saying, no, you're also going to throw out Rob Shore and Associates because we didn't do anything wrong either. We're going to get to that. Now, this is a really interesting part here. This is something that was really not previously known and is certainly different from what Chris Fehn said in his documents, that he believed that he was involved in a partnership with the band. They performed as a partnership. They made equal decisions. And then Corey Taylor and Clown were responsible for basically putting those plans into action. And now we're going to see a little bit of a preview of likely what Slipknot is going to say if their business manager, who handled all their financial documents, is to be believed. He's saying that, quote, Mr. Fehn performed with Slipknot and received a fee for doing so. He is not a shareholder, owner, or member of any business entity he names as a defendant in this action. So that is an explosive claim here that Chris Fehn was nothing more than a hired gun, despite the fact he was in the band for over 20 years. They're saying that he was hired as basically a touring member and not someone who was, creating music with the band. And that makes you wonder what the status of the other members of the band are. Who are the controlling members? Who are the owners of the band? He says, I have been involved in the music management business for decades and have had operated RSA since 2008. He talks about what services he provides. He says he's never been sued by a client, and so on and so forth. We're going to go to another document here where he sort of talks about Corey and Clown's role within the band as well. Now, next up, we're going to point you to this document that was filed in which Rob Shore and his business, through the attorneys, of course, name who they believe are the controlling owners of Slipknot. They say that defendants Michael Sean Crayon and Corey Taylor are founding members of the musical band professionally known as Slipknot. All remaining defendants are entities through which the band's business is or was conducted. They're saying that essentially everyone else in the band except for Corey and Clown are not shareholders. They're not owners. They are being paid for providing a service, and that service is to perform in Slipknot. And this is becoming an increasingly common thing in the band world, where you have members of a certain group that are essentially being paid to tour with the band, and that is it. That is a common practice in the music industry. This may make some people mad, but that is just a matter of fact. There are people who own portions of bands. This is, this is something that may upset people, but Corey and Clown, if they do own the band and this was something privately known, it wouldn't be something that they would come out and publicly say, hey, just so you guys know, we own the band. The fact that people don't know this about Slipknot is actually a good thing. The question is were the other members of Slipknot misled? You certainly don't see, at least at this point, other members, including past members of Slipknot, filing any sort of claim saying that they were being misled about their status in the band. But it does appear that Chris believed that he was in some sort of a leadership or ownership position and that he was a stakeholder in the group. But this is not what the business manager for the band is claiming. It is completely understandable that Corey and Clown would assert themselves as business managers and founding members of the band. I don't think that any Slipknot fan would believe that there were any other members who were doing more business-related matters for the group, or that they aren't the faces of the band at this point. Now, you could make the argument several years back that you had, Joey being an integral part of the band. It's unclear what his status is, if he still has some sort of ownership stake. From this document, it doesn't appear that that is so. And again, there are people who are no longer in bands that still receive, portions from their time in the group. That is something too. But from this point, we haven't heard anything from Joey about that. And so it's likely that situation is completely resolved. It just seems at this point as if there was some sort of a miscommunication where Chris believed he was something in the band. And unfortunately, that was not true. And it's going to be a difficult thing for him to overcome, disproving that, because there are many people out there who do believe that Corey and Clown are the leaders in the band. And they do seem to do the most, at least publicly, in the band. Not that there aren't other people that are big contributors to the group, but you also have people that are big contributors to companies that don't own the business. I'm sorry, but sometimes the fourth wall is broken down and people have to find out things that are uncomfortable about businesses that you just have to understand. If you want Slipknot to continue to be a thing, if you want your favorite bands to continue to be a thing, there are partnerships in place. There are business documents in place sometimes that give other people more ownership, and sometimes there's only one guy who owns the band. So it's a difficult thing to understand. It makes a lot of people angry, but it certainly isn't unprecedented that you could have two guys who are the sole members of Slipknot. People tend to conflate the gimmick, and I don't say that in a negative way, but the aura of Slipknot, the aesthetic of Slipknot, the story of Slipknot as it pertains to them as entertainment property with the fact that they also have to run a business. This was something similar that we saw with the members of Ghost. You had Tobias come out and say, I'm the leader of the band. In fact, in many ways, this is almost the exact same situation where you have these other members saying that, or you have at least here one other member who's suing, and you don't even have multiple other members. And he's saying that he's entitled this. And you look what happened in that case. Of course, this was in another country. Tobias, up to this point, now pending on appeal, he has been recognized as the sole owner of the band. So we're just going to have to wait this one out. It's a difficult situation to look at, but when you do look at it, there is an argument to be made that Corey and Clown are members. But of course, Chris is entitled to, make his case, and hopefully he can see the finances, but again, we're going to keep an eye on this. Thanks for joining us here at Rockbeat. Thanks for sticking with us. It's been a difficult last few days making some renovations here in the studio to roll out some exciting updates in the show format that we think you'll enjoy. So, all right, thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on breaking hard rock and heavy metal news. Stick with Rockbeat for updates on this story and others. We'll see you guys very soon.